I proposed to my fiancé 6 months ago after dating for about a year. While I was ready to take this next step, I wanted a simple wedding to avoid unnecessary expenses. My fiancé, however, desired a big wedding and wanted me to cover the costs. I had to decline since my finances were tight, especially considering we each had children, my daughter and her 2 daughters. So we needed to be mindful of our budget. Eventually, we reached a compromise. I agreed to spend a bit more than I initially planned, and she agreed that we should split the wedding costs fairly. As we discussed the wedding details, she firmly expressed her desire for a no-kids wedding. I hesitated, wanting my daughter to be there, but my fiancé was insistent. After some back and forth, I reluctantly accepted her decision, hoping they could bond more over time. I had seen her interact with my daughter on a few occasions, and while they were comfortable with each other, they weren't particularly close. I hoped that with time, their relationship would deepen, just as I had witnessed her beautiful bond with her daughters. This was one of the reasons I had proposed. I wanted to create a family that included all of our children. As the wedding date approached, I noticed my fiancé becoming increasingly stressed with the preparations. I tried my best to support her during this time, offering to help with various tasks and providing her with relaxation when possible. I was involved in every decision, hoping to ease her burden. While I didn't want to force her to spend time with my daughter, I did mention it occasionally, believing it was essential for them to form a connection. I sent my daughter over to spend time with my fiancé a few times, but she often made excuses to avoid it, citing being busy. This behavior troubled me, especially since I saw how much effort she put into her relationship with her own daughters. After a few months of engagement, I confronted her about my concerns, expressing how important my daughter was in my life and that I expected her to make an effort towards her as well. I asked her to imagine how she would feel if I ignored her daughters. This seemed to resonate with her and she apologized, promising to put in more effort. 2 months went by, and while she managed to take my daughter out 2 or 3 times, it still felt insufficient. I understood that with the wedding approaching, she had a lot on her plate, but I couldn't shake the feeling that my daughter was being sidelined. My daughter was genuinely upset about not being able to attend the wedding, which broke my heart. I tried to explain the situation to her, but it only resulted in her tears. On the day of the wedding, I walked into the venue, captivated by how beautiful everything looked. However, my heart sank as I scanned the room and noticed my fiancé's daughters and some of her nieces dressed up and present. I was taken aback and filled with disbelief, realizing that despite my repeated requests, my daughter wasn't there, yet her children were. I stopped in shock midway through the venue, laughter bubbling up unexpectedly from the depths of my frustration and disappointment. In that moment, I felt a mix of anger and betrayal. I had tried so hard to respect her wishes, to understand her vision of our wedding, yet it seemed hypocritical that she was surrounded by her children while my daughter was excluded. This moment marked a significant turning point in our relationship, leading me to question the foundation of our partnership and how we could move forward as a family. The day of the wedding arrived, and as I approached the venue, I noticed something that made my stomach sink. I had explicitly agreed with my fiancé that this would be a no-kids wedding to keep the atmosphere more intimate and focused. Yet, as I stepped inside, I saw children everywhere. Her family's kids all dressed up in matching outfits, laughing and playing. My heart raced with a mix of confusion and anger. This was a significant day for us, and I felt betrayed. Why were they there when we had made a clear decision against it? Feeling overwhelmed, I turned on my heels and walked back outside. I could hear whispers from our family and friends, a mix of concern and confusion about my sudden exit. Moments later, her sister came out to ask what had happened. I confronted her directly, demanding to know why there were kids present despite our agreement. She appeared nervous, fumbling for excuses, but I dismissed her words and walked away in search of answers. I tried to call my fiancé, but I couldn't reach her. The minutes felt like hours as I paced outside, stewing in my frustration. Just then, A car pulled up and I saw my fiancé emerge, a puzzled smile on her face. My anger boiled over. I couldn't shake the image of my daughter's face when I told her she couldn't attend the wedding. She was my world, and it hurt to leave her out of this important moment in my life. As my fiancé approached, I couldn't hold back. "Why are the kids at the wedding?" I asked, my voice sharp. She looked taken aback, clearly not expecting my reaction. I pressed on, demanding to know why her daughters and nieces were there if we had agreed to a no-kids policy. She started to explain, saying it was a last-minute decision because they had no one to watch the kids. I couldn't believe it. I laughed derisively, unable to comprehend how she thought I would accept such an excuse. I reminded her of our agreement, of how much it meant to me for my daughter to be included in our family. As the situation escalated, her mother approached, urging me to calm down over what she deemed a small issue. But I lost my temper. "How would you feel if your fiancé's kids were here and mine was excluded?" I shot back, silencing her. My fiancé started to tear up, realizing the gravity of the situation. "It was a mistake," she said, trying to hold my hand in an effort to soothe me, but I stepped back. I was hurt and disappointed. This was not the vision I had when I proposed. I had imagined a day filled with joy and togetherness, not conflict and betrayal. I felt compelled to take drastic action. I walked back into the venue, the weight of the moment heavy on my shoulders. I approached the minister and, without hesitation, took the microphone. I announced to everyone that the wedding was off. I made sure to explain clearly why I was making this decision, detailing how my fiancé's disregard for our agreement affected me and my daughter. As I declared the wedding canceled, I watched my fiancé rush out, clearly embarrassed and upset. I walked out of the venue with my family and my best friend, who stood by me silently, understanding the pain I was feeling. In the days that followed, I faced the aftermath of this decision. I had to communicate with all the vendors and guests, explaining the sudden change in plans while managing my own hurt and frustration. But the most crucial task ahead of me was talking to my daughter. When I returned home, I embraced her tightly, wanting to convey my love and reassurance. She looked up at me with questions in her eyes, but soon enough, she found comfort in playing with me. I had packed up my fiancé's belongings, placing them outside, feeling it was best to distance myself from her for now. I knew I could have handled the situation differently, but in that moment, all I could think about was protecting my daughter from any further disappointment. Reflecting on everything, I realized I had made a mistake by proposing without fully understanding how my fiancé would fit into my life and my daughter's. I had been blinded by the excitement of the future, not recognizing the reality of our situation. It was a lesson learned the hard way, and I knew I needed to prioritize my daughter above all else.